You only go as far as your starting quarterback can take you. But today I want to look at how far can Emmett Morehead take Boston College? We'll get into that on today's show.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On BC, I'm your host, AJ Black. Thank you all for listening. Today's episode is going to be about Emmett Morehead, Sione Hala, and Eagles in the NFL getting some of that cash. Let's start off with Emmett Morehead. Now, earlier this weekend, I saw a picture of Emmett Morehead training in, I believe it was Alabama, with Phil Jurkovec and another quarterback. Now, I was wondering, when I looked at that, first of all, Emmett Morehead looked absolutely enormous compared to everyone else, and he should be. He's about 6'6". He's one of the biggest quarterbacks I've ever seen live. But my bigger question is, as he continues to improve, and there was a humongous jump from 2022 to 2023. 2021 to 2022. What kind of jump could Morehead take next season? Where could Morehead take this offense? And there's a lot to look at here. Now, if you look at his statistics, you have to be reasonable with where he was at, because the first, I think it was 8 games, he was backup. So his statistics are a little warped if you're looking at yards per game. But really, you look at his month of November when he was installed as the starting quarterback for the Eagles. You saw a quarterback that was averaging over 250 yards per game. He did that in every game except for the shellacking that they took in Notre Dame against Duke, against NC State, and against Syracuse. He had relatively strong games in terms of passing yards and touchdowns. If you break it down, he had, I believe, 2 300-plus yard games. He had, I believe it was like a 8-4 interception ratio. And pulling it up right now, I didn't do a good job of writing this down. Yeah, he had a 9-5 touchdown to interception ratio in those last couple games. But if you take out the Notre Dame game, which I know isn't fair to do something like that, he had a 7-2 ratio. And that was against 2 decent defenses. Syracuse had a good defense, and NC State and Duke both have good defenses. So it's not like he was doing this against Maine and UConn, which, yeah, I know they lost to UConn, right? But I saw a lot. I saw a lot out of Emmett Morehead last year. And I'm not saying he's going to jump to become the best quarterback in the ACC. If you're thinking that's where he's going to go, I think you're going to get yourself disappointed, and you're setting yourself up to be unreasonable. And I think it's good to look at what Morehead came from, and that is that kind of gives you an idea of where his trajectory should go. Now, in 2021. He had a couple starts before Jurkovec came back. Or no, he didn't have a couple starts. He got thrown into a couple games. It was that Syracuse game and the Louisville game, and he looked awful. He looked like a guy that had never played college football before. It was bad. Now, he had only played periodically in high school. He hadn't played in 2020 at all. And that was really his first go-round, and he did it in college. So it was like he was just kind of thrown out there. It wasn't a very reassuring outing. I'm going to say that right now. He did not look like he was ready. And, as behind as he looked, you were wondering, is he going to be able to get to that next level? You get to 2022. Morehead comes in. He's playing behind Jurkovec. You see him in some mop-up games here and there. And then Jurkovec goes down against UConn. And as Marty Party said, he threw a beautiful long ball to Zay Flowers, who dropped a pass that would have been a big one for BC. And then after that, I thought he looked pretty strong. Was he perfect? No, but again, this is only his first full year, and it's not even a first full year. It's first full 4 games as a starter. I have a hard time. I see David Smith on Facebook saying he's a middle of the road quarterback. I don't know how you can make that assessment yet. I can't make an assessment that he's a good quarterback. I can't make an assessment that he's a bad quarterback. He's played 4 games. I'm looking at what I saw, and I said, okay, there's something there. There's something there for a guy who is just getting his feet underneath him. Will he jump? I think there's questions about his his accuracy a little bit, but he gets the ball out quickly. He's big. He's not very mobile, but he does he does do some things. I think that'll be really helpful for him. And I don't want to say I'm not a guy that really wants to look at the statistics and say, oh, he's a guy that is going to average 275 yards per game next year. I don't think that is a reasonable thing to do, because the hope, Hafley said it during his press conference, is that BC will be able to run the ball again. That BC will be able to not just rely on having to throw the ball, because your running game is completely, it was completely, it was not there, right? So I don't think he needs to do all that much more next year. If he does what he did at the end of last year, and even maybe if he doesn't, even if it goes down a little bit, if there's a run game that they can control the clock, move the ball effectively, you don't have to rely on Emmett Morehead. But that's, as Marty Party in our comment section says, the running game has to improve. They were last in D1 last year. That's a big, big jump. But that jump, if they can do that, if they can become even middle of the road, you don't need to go from last to first or last to 25th. Just be 50, 60th there. It's that will help Emmett Morehead out tremendously. Just having the threat of running the ball, having the threat that you can block and move the ball. And I know that is a huge emphasis on this offense. So what's the ceiling for him next year? I think a good quarterback. I'm not going to say great yet. I don't think that's a reasonable expectation for him, but a good one that makes some big plays, like we saw against NC. Okay. Okay. So, we'll get into the comment section here in a second, but I think Morehead did look really good. And Football Fan says, I think you have Jerk whiplash. He looks so much better than Jerk when Jerk was finally benched, but did he look good? Better than Jerk, but may not be good. I was at the Notre Dame game, and the game was Football Fan. I said already that he did not look good in the Notre Dame game. I said that, I mean, you had a terrible offensive line against one of the country's best defenses. I mean, you could throw John Elway back there and he would have got killed. Or Tom Brady, because there was no way he was going to get anything off. And yeah, he looked bad because it was against a really good defense in his third start. So I'm not gonna say, I'm not giving him huge props here, but I'm going to say that he's 3 out of the 4 starts that he played, other than Notre Dame, I thought Emmett Morehead looked good. All right. So in a moment, I want to look at BC Eagles in the NFL, talk a little bit about Sione Hala, and get into some of the other big BC sporting news that's going around the league. We'll get into that in just a moment. But before we do that, I got to tell you about our good old friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is the place to go when you want to make your sports wagers. And now with betting legal in Massachusetts, you got to check it out. The midway point of the NBA season is here, and it's now the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet of up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sports app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. This is Locked On BC. I'm your host, AJ Black. This is the first time I am putting this out also on Facebook. If anyone wanted to listen to it, I'm streaming it over there as well. And I was hoping if you are listening on Facebook, head over to our YouTube channel as well. And make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Go to Locked On BC /Boston, Locked On Boston College, and subscribe to our podcast. Okay. Make sure you do that today. All right. And hit the like button too. Yeah. Hit the like button if you're listening. So thank you so much. Well, one name I wanted to bring up, we're into the thick of things in the off, and there's a position I think BC has a big need in, and that is the safety position. Now we know Cole Batson is going to be the free safety next year. He started last year once Jason Maitre, who was pushed down to cornerback. They needed to bring a guy up. And he had his moments. He looked good at times. His coverage grade on Pro Football Focus was very good. But, he had some trouble with tackling at times like that. But it was his first year as a starter. Hopefully, just like Hafley keeps saying, you want to see these guys grow. You want to see these guys develop. That's part of what BC has always been about, is development, right? But that other safety position, this is the position that I think there's a lot of question marks. If there's a question mark, like, you know who the linebackers are going to be, whether you think you like them or not, you know who they're going to probably be. You know who the offensive line is going to be. The safety position is the biggest question mark right now. That's strong safety. And they landed Victor Nelson, a 6'4" safety out of Long Island University in the transfer portal. But the question remains, is he going to be the guy that takes over that position, or could it be one of the young guys? And Sione Hala, who is out of California, is a 4-star safety. He's going to be a redshirt freshman this year. He was a guy that I was kind of surprised. I thought he'd play last year, especially once there were injuries. You figured he would kind of take that jump and get into the starting rotation, or at least get some playing time. I don't think I saw him out there at all, and he definitely earned his red shirt. He is that hybrid type of linebacker safety that I think is perfect for the safety role, because Hafley loved, with Jayden Lars would be, to put him in the box, put him back into coverage, moving him all around to do certain things and give them some flexibility in the way that they ran their defense. Now, Sione Hala is that kind of guy. I think it was last year's it was their depth chart last year. I believe he was at linebacker at one point, but he's back at defensive back going into this season. So you can expect him to possibly be that strong safety. He's quick, he's violent. And I think this will be a year where he kind of pushes. Will he beat out Nelson? I'm not sure. Nelson is a big dude, and Hala, I think, is like 6'2". And he is one of the biggest recruits that Jeff Hafley has landed in the last couple of years. As a kid that was in the Polynesian Bowl, he played at a big high school in California. And I don't think a lot of folks know him. If you don't know him as well, plug, I had him on the show before he signed with BC. So it would have been the fall of 2021. You could hear our interview with Sione Hala, which was great to get to talk to him. Now, he's one guy I want to watch for. And I'm going to keep throwing out new names because, I think when Hafley was talking during his first press conference, he was discussing how the team has depth, and that, he was mentioning specifically the offensive line, that there's 3 offensive lines there, that they can get things going, that they have, guys that are building up to college strength. They had a lot of kids last year that were at high school weights, and they needed to get them up. I think Hala will be one, and I'm going to continue to give you some names to watch for, because I think it's fun to kind of know the names coming up. And from talking and hearing about practices and all that good stuff, I'll give you some names that you're going to want to watch for. Now, one other piece I wanted to get to about football, and then we'll get into the final segment, which is kind of our news wrap up of the week, is Eagles in the NFL. And I have a few thoughts I want to get into here. It was the first day, I believe, first day of, I think it's legal tampering, I think is what they call this one. And BC was in the news quite a bit because Chris Lindstrom received a 5-year, $105 million contract extension from the Atlanta Falcons. That makes him the highest paid offensive guard in the NFL. That's not the end of the news. We saw Hunter Long. He's heading to the Los Angeles Chargers. That's good. Matt Milano got I think it was a $14 million a year contract for a 2-year extension from the Bills. And finally, just as I sat down to record this, Zach Allen signed with, I believe it was the Denver Broncos. It's a really poorly worded tweet from Adam Schefter. For $45 million. That includes a $32.5 million guarantee at signing. Man, BC lit up the NFL free agencies with paydays here. And I'm probably missing one too. I know Hunter Long. I got Hunter Long. I think that's everyone. John Johnson is still a free agent. He was released by the Browns. I think he's going to get paid too. Now, why am I bringing these up? It's cool to hear about Eagles in the NFL. Chris Lindstrom, especially. That family's awesome. I love Alec. I love Chris. I think their family. I don't know if they still listen because I know both kids are gone, but I know they listened at one point. It's great to see. And man, Chris is loaded now. But if I was working at BC, I would be plastering this to every single recruiting pamphlet that I send out. And yes, I know they didn't play for Jeff Hafley. That doesn't matter. It matters that they wore maroon and gold. It matters. That's a piece that you can sell. You have all these guys from Milano to Lindstrom to Allen to Landry to AJ Dillon. You've got some good Matt Ryan. You've got some big time names, big time money in the league right now. And you can sell that to recruits. Believe me, these recruits, I've talked to a lot of them. The thing that they bring up is that they want to get paid and get to the NFL. Then they want to get to the NFL and get paid. That's usually the order they say it, right? And Hafley's been selling that vision. Now he has some even more big ammo here, and he's got to take advantage of it, right? He's got to be able to sell that to the kids, because if their goal is to get to the league, you have some big time guys in the league right now. Show them those tweets, show them those contracts, and say, hey, this is something you can get at Boston College, plus a great education in the city of Boston, playing in the ACC. Come play at Boston College. I think it's a slam dunk right there. Now, in our final segment, we're going to get off of football for a little bit. We're going to talk about women's basketball. I have some thoughts about some concerning things that have been going on with that program. We're going to talk about baseball finally getting ranked and a few other things that have popped up for BC sports. We'll get into that in just a moment. Locked on BC, AJ Black. If you are listening to this and have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do that right now. Go subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are doing a special little deal here. This is a Locked on BC exclusive. When we get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, we will give away two home field apparel t-shirts. So those are nice shirts. If you guys know what home field apparel is, you need to get in on that. But we got to get 1,000 first, okay? So join us. I'm going to put the link in the comment section right now. If you're listening and you're not part of our YouTube page, just hit subscribe. It's completely free. Doesn't cost you a cent. So let's start with some concerning stuff. Let's talk about women's basketball. Women's basketball they did not make any of the tournaments this year. They were an NIT team last year. They lost a ton of talent. They had a couple big wins this year, but they just didn't have enough to get to that next level. Now, I don't cover women's basketball, so I don't want to pretend that I know the insides and outsides of some of this stuff. But what I do know is what I see, and that is a ton of players on this roster that have entered the transfer portal over the last 2 years. And BC Interruption site I used to work for many moons ago did a great job of explaining it. Now there was, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 ladies from 2021 to 2019 that entered the transfer portal. But in the last 2 years, you have Taylor Soule, who just won an ACC championship, and they credit her as being part of the force that does it. Clara Ford, who just won an ACC championship. Marnell Garrard, Michaela Dickens, Jalen Batts, Cam Schwartz, Ali Palmieri. And this year, Maria Gekdeng, who I think is the most concerning of all of those, because Sol, Garrod, Dickens, Ford, Schwartz, they were all grad transfers. They had 1 year left. So it was concerning that like it was a mass exodus, but you could also kind of chalk it up to possibly that it was, they want to just have a new experience for that last year. A lot of folks do that kind of thing, right? But Gag Dang is concerning because she was all ACC freshman team last year. She was easily the best player on the team this year. She was, a big center that could block and rebound, do all sorts of big guy things for the team. Now she's gone. That's worrisome. She was just a sophomore and she's leaving. I don't know what's going on with BC women's basketball. And if I had sources, I'd ask, but I'm not connected to the women's basketball team. I do say, I go by what I see, and it's concerning. Now you have a team that looked like they were starting to take a step this year. It wasn't like they were great. They were just taking a step in the right direction. And you would hope that, Gak Dang is a junior and they had some other talented players on this team, that they would take that next step and become a potential tournament team next year. Now you lose your best player and you take a step back. I don't know what's going on over there. I'm just concerned. Baseball, though. Baseball, I am not concerned about, because after winning 4 games last week, with 1 against number 2, Tennessee, and 2 against number 10, Virginia Tech, baseball is ranked. Baseball America ranked BC number 18 in the country after a solid week last week, while Joey Vetrano, who had 4 home runs, was named ACC Player of the Week. Big week for the BC baseball team. And it's only going to get harder for them as they have a big weekend series against Florida State in Tallahassee. Florida State is number 20 something in the country, I believe. Now, D1 baseball did not rank BC, and I made some shots at them on Twitter because I thought it was stupid that Virginia Tech got ranked higher than them, even though they have more losses, and BC beat them twice. But as Gambino said today, it's all about where you end up. It's all about, what they put into every game. And right now, big time work into some of these wins, and it's exciting. So, Vetrano, after hitting 4 home runs, looks to be like a real offensive threat for this team. While they're pitching well, they're doing everything well, as I've said before. They're not going to have a midweek game because, unfortunately, they were scheduled to play Holy Cross. It was confusing. It looked like they were TBA play. I don't know how they do the midweek games for that, but we're about to get smashed with the nor'easter up here in Massachusetts with snow and rain and all sorts of good stuff. So their game got canceled. So we'll have to wait for for Tallahassee this weekend and see where BC ends up. Thank you all for listening to our show today. If you have not done so, follow me on Twitter at AJBlack_BC. The one thing that we didn't talk about today was the transfer portal opened for men's basketball. And there was, I saw a great tweet that said every player in a group of 6 school or mid-major school that had 10 or more points is now in the transfer portal, because that's basically what happened. But the one thing that I noticed was there are 0 BC players so far. No, I'm not expecting that to change. I am expecting that to change, because I saw DeMar Langford's cryptic tweet. TJ Bickerstaff had one as well, and CJ Penna looks like he's done. So there may be a few other ones to look for. So we'll talk about that if anything changes. Follow me on Twitter, and if you have not done so already, Eagle Insider, follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our site. I have tons of recruiting news up there, and I hope to see you all again soon. Take care, everyone.